All right, man, peace. So, brothers, this court case right here is going to allow me to cover a myriad of topics. But the main focus that I'm going to be honing in on in regards to this court case will be this young lady here, her boyfriend, who happens to be a sub-issue that Judge Mathis will be addressing directly in this court case. As you'll soon see, he has a lot of tattoos on his face. And let me say this about many brothers, particularly so-called black men who want to be grafted into the mainstream of this society. People are going to judge you according to how you depict yourself. And when you get tattoos on your neck, on your face, where they're highly visible, you must understand they're already intimidated by the fact that you're a so-called black man. So when you decide to get tattoos on your face, on your neck, even if it's part of a former lifestyle that you used to live, you were a gang member or what have you, and you decide that you're going to depart from that life choice and clean yourself up and become a productive member of society, you are going to be judged. You cannot be quizzical. You cannot marvel. You can't be confused as to why people want to judge you on your exterior, because that is how the human brain functions for the most part. The brain functions associatively. In other words, what? Based off of certain hairstyles, off of markings on your flesh, off of how you dress, people are going to make initial evaluations, no matter how shallow they may be. So if you're one of those brothers who wants to become grafted into the mainstream, the mainframe of this society, you should try to keep yourself as clean cut as possible. That's just my perspective on it. If not, if you're a cat that wants to get tatted up, it's no problem. Then you should work in an alternative line or some other form of endeavor so that you don't have to become a part of the mainstream. You don't have to kowtow to the mores, the standards of regular workplace society. But you know what? Let's let them talk about it. I'm going to chime in. There's also going to be some dynamics here that we're going to see in regards to this young lady here, the black woman and her friends, which there was an attempt made to affect her relationship with a man. And I've stated this in other videos. Brothers, please be very cognizant of your woman's friends. Make sure that you understand exactly what energy your woman's friends are exerting on her. You may want to have a conversation about what you feel your woman's friends are having on your woman in regards to how she conducts herself, the energy that she exudes based off of what she receives from them. And if she shows herself to be unreceptive, then you're going to have to cut her off. But let's see what they have to say here.
Plaintiff Khadijah Johnson says her mom and the defendant's mom grew up together, and she and the defendant became good friends in college. However, Khadijah claims she and the defendant fell out after the defendant's mom had a disagreement with Khadijah's fiancé, who was with her in court, and she's suing her former friend for an unpaid loan and emotional distress. Defendant Jakayla Holmes admits that she...
No disrespect to the defendant right here, but it's a major red flag. I'm not going to judge this young lady directly based off of her weight, but oftentimes females that are heavy set, have girth, so-called quote-unquote big-boned, oftentimes they suffer from low self-esteem, and not because they're rejected by society as much as they reject themselves. They feel bad about how they look when they look in the mirror. People will try to allege that America's standards of beauty are off. People must understand that standards of health are different from standards of beauty. And I'm not attacking men who might like heavier women. There are beautiful women that come in all different shapes. You might see a chick that's 5'11", weighs about 200 pounds walking down the street, and she has all the weight in the right places. I'm not making those type of quote-unquote judgments. I'm stating that just looking at this female, this is just me making an initial evaluation. She seems like the type that would try to put the kibosh or sabotage a friend's relationship because she's most likely jealous that she cannot develop one on her own. Once again, brothers, always be very cognizant, very aware, very astute in regards to the other females that are around your woman, the other people, period, because they will affect the rapport between you and your woman. And if your woman constantly allows that rapport to be affected by those around her, you're going to have to move on. All right?
That she had issues with Khadijah's fiancé, but says it's because he said things that scared her. Jakayla claims the only reason Khadijah's suing her is because she ended their friendship, and she's countersuing for bills and harassment.
Start with you.
Our moms, we're really close. They grew up together. They went to school.
Where?
Bakersfield, California. So me and Jakayla, we started hanging out in like 2014 when we went to college together. We had the same class. We became really close friends. We started hanging out a lot. At one point in time, I ended up moving in with her. Over time, she just became to me a negative person, a negative friend. And
Why?
because like she would just say like slick comments about like situations like or just people in general like that.
That's why you should have cut her off as soon as you saw that she was exhibiting those traits. Brothers, once again, do not allow negativity into your life. Negativity is what you allow into your life, whether it's male or female. When you see someone that's prohibitively negative, cut them off expeditiously. All a negative person can do is tear you down. They can never build you up. Why is that? Because normally they hate themselves. They're extremely insecure. They have low self-esteem. And oftentimes it goes back to something in their childhood. Maybe their parents were very negative with them. Maybe they were molested, not to take it all the way there, but oftentimes that can be an issue as well. Or they felt like they did not receive enough attention, so they're jealous over others that receive attention. All a jealous person is someone who has not spent the time to figure out what their purpose is on the earth, what gifts they have, and cultivate those gifts. People who are jealous, they spend more time worrying about others than they do their damn self. That's why I stayed. And you could tell just by how this female walked into the courtroom, how she was looking down at the ground. She has low self-esteem. All right? Don't tolerate having haters around you. It's okay to have people who are critical of you as long as they're positively critical, as long as they have something of merit to say, as long as their intention is to build you up, which in turn shows that they themselves work on building themselves up. People who build themselves up normally do not waste time trying to tear others down. They normally want to build others up as well because they're not threatened by other people. Insecure people are always easily threatened by others.
Like bad talk, basically. Her mom and my fiance, they got into it because her mom like approached him aggressively, asking him questions that wasn't really her business.
About your boyfriend? Is that
about my boyfriend and just like my character, who I am.
All right. What'd she say about your boyfriend?
About him? That.
No, the other boyfriend.
Hey, that's a red flag, bruh. That's a red flag. To my brother sitting in the chair. The judge asked her about her boyfriend. She said, who him? I'm just playing. She's going to clarify it soon. That's actually her fiance. But yeah, as always, be wary when the woman is not ready to claim you in public or things of that nature. But that's not the case here. I'm just clowning around because the judge was clowning her.
Yeah, no, the other boyfriend. You heard me say boyfriend, and then she had a what? Who? Which one?
You see, Mathis likes to play the liberal game on television because he has to exude that energy in order to keep his position as a television judge. But he knows that, he knows about a lot of the fuckery that goes on in society. He's too smart to actually believe a lot of the dumb shit that he says. But he also believes some dumb shit as well because, people are just bugged out here.
That one.
Let me just clarify, actually fiance. So that's what I should have said.
Oh, okay, so it's my fault. You were talking about the boyfriend, not the fiance.
Yeah, she's like, the boyfriend? Oh, no, he's not here right now. He's at home. I got this nigga stringing around because he got a good job.
Not the fiance. Forgive me. All right.
No, clarify it's my fiance.
Ma'am. We know you confused, and and he seems like a nice young man. So lead the other one around. He got a lot of tats over there. Nothing wrong with that.
Now you see that, brothers? This person here decided that he was going to cover his face in tattoos. Why is that? Because whatever lifestyle he was living before, he was knee deep in it. He was fully immersed in it. And he decided that he was going to make a full commitment to that life choice. Most likely because he had no hope that he was ever going to become a member of mainstream society or live a productive life in general. And you'll oftentimes see that with a lot of so-called black men who cover themselves in tats like that. And look, I'm sorry, certain people are going to say, well, you can't judge, you can't say this, you can't say that. When I see someone who covers their whole body in tattoos like that, to me, that's a metaphor for what they're trying to cover psychologically. They may have been molested as a child. They may have gone through some type of traumatic event. They may be trying to exude an exterior image as someone who wants to fit in with a so-called tough guy image or a tough guy sphere. And he wants the outside world to view him based off of what he's covered his skin in as opposed to who he really is. And I say all that to say this. When you decide to commit to a life choice like he has, even if you decide to convert yourself over into something functional, something beneficial for yourself, people are going to judge you based off of what they see on your face. When you have crosses in the middle of your head, that cross in the middle of his forehead is for Tammuz, by the way. He doesn't know that, but that cross is for Tammuz. Most of the modern day gangs have their fountain in Luciferianism. Many of these brothers don't know that. That's why they use those hand signs and those finger gestures, what they call stacking, what have you. A lot of that is just low-level masonry that they don't know much about. They don't know the origins of where many of their groups come from. Most gangs are just low-level fraternal orders. And they're basically set on each other in mainstream society to fill the prison industrial complex and to create an air of dysfunctionality in the so-called black community to make sure that any type of intelligent element in the so-called black community, especially amongst the young men, is demonized. That has to be beaten out of little black boys to be intelligent and to have wherewithal. You have to become a part of this gang or that gang, or you're not going to make it.
But nonetheless, what was she saying about your boyfriend or fiance?
That he has demons. That's what she said. I'm not.
Well, let me say this. Just to look at him, he certainly had demons at one point. He may have gotten rid of the demons that he had at that point, but he certainly had them at one point to cover his face like that. For those of you brothers who are interested in the scriptures, who read the Bible, in Leviticus, the 19th chapter, I believe the 28th verse, it tells you not to make any cuttings in your flesh for the dead, or not to print any marks on your skin, what we call today tattoos or branding. In the ancient world, people would scarify themselves in honor of Asar. That's what the scripture really means when it says to make no cuttings in your flesh for the dead. That term, the dead, was a colloquialism that was used for the god of the dead, Asar. Remember, they were coming out of Egypt. They were coming out of Kemet, and they were adhering to many of the practices of Kemet, of ancient Kemet. So they would shave their head bald, completely bald, in honor of the priests of Asar. They would shave all their hair off of their body in honor of Asar, which is what his priest did. That's why the Buddhist monks also shave their heads bald, by the way. All Buddhism is a Far Eastern version of the Babylonian Kemetic mystery school system. Buddhism is an offshoot of Hinduism. Hinduism, Catholicism, all those are branches of the Babylonian Kemetic tree. That's all they are. And the tattoos and the scarifications, like, for example, in the Catholic Church, they have something called flagellation. Evers and Frank, L-A-G-E-L-L-A-T-I-O-N, in which the priests or the monks will whip themselves until they bleed. That is them scarifying themselves for Asar, or as he's also known, Saturn. Okay, so it all goes back to the idolization, the worship of that entity. That's why I constantly bring him up, because his energy reverberates in this society today, or as he was known when he was reborn, quote unquote reborn or reincarnated, as Tammuz or Heru.
He has demons.
Yeah, that's what she said.
That's all?
That and
Did she say you do too? Because you do. Yeah. I do. She does. He does. Everybody has demons. What is she talking about?
Everybody has issues. Everybody doesn't have demons, Judge. Everybody has an issue that they have to handle to improve themselves as a person. Demons are a bit different. Like Charles Manson had demons. John Wayne Gacy had demons. Certain people might not be the most cleanly. They have issues that they have to deal with. No, everybody does not have demons. Everybody has certain issues. Now, when you allow those issues to become exacerbated, when they get to the point that you're hurting yourself or hurting others, those are demons, particularly when you're not cognizant of it, when you cannot control the problems that you have, and when they're spilling over to affect your life. Like those are demons, like when you're hurting other people, when you're hurting yourself, when you're doing things that, quite frankly, are contrary to your productivity as a person. They can start out as issues, but when you're talking about demons, that's a whole other level. And I have to agree with her mother. At one point, that young man had demons, but you have to get to know him to understand where his demons may have come from, and if he still has them, he may have been moving past them. So that is where I agree with the plaintiff, that's not up to the mother to make those evaluations until she gets to know him thoroughly. When you meet a person like him and you see all those tats on his face and on his neck, if you don't know him, you're going to say to yourself, okay, this person has some gang affiliations. He could bring a deleterious energy or aspect to, my sister, my daughter, whoever it is that he's trying to date. You get to know him. You find out what are his motivations, what are his goals. He may be on the upswing, hopefully. But I don't think that it was a bad thing that the mother assumed that he had demons when she saw how he depicted himself, how he chose to depict himself. That's why I led the video by stating to you, brothers, when you decide that you're going to embrace and immerse yourself in a certain life choice, you have to be prepared for the consequences.
Your Honor,
what are you all saying about her fiance that caused friction in your relationship?
The demon, it was a joke between me and her. She's called me a demon. I've called.
Okay, and that's it. That's all you all have said about her relationship?
As far as me speaking upon her fiance.
I don't think that your mother was joking. I think that she was being honest. And to be quite frank with you, I don't have a problem with her evaluation, with her appraisal. It is common for a mother or a father who is very worried or concerned about their child, or even someone that your child's associating with, to see them bring someone who has a wild look and say, that person has issues, or that person may have a demon on them. I don't think that that's that big of a deal. Now, if they don't take the time to get to know that person, then it may reflect on themselves as well as the demon that they're trying to assess in somebody else.
I just was scared because he said comments before that could justify me being like, okay, hold on now. Like, something's wrong.
I don't know what y'all saying. What is it? You want to speak for yourself, sir? You want to just stand up, please? Now, people have been talking behind your back, and everybody's scared to say what they've been saying or what her mother says. All she said, you got a demon. Things he said to me, and what does he say to you? Oh, yeah.
Okay, I met the defendant through my fiance. Went out a couple of times. Everything was convenient for the friends, when I had, homeboys there to hook them up with and stuff like that. But at the point where we took our relationship to another level, and in my opinion, her friends were being opportunists and they was getting exposed for being opportunists, it was a problem. Like you said, I'm heavily tatted, but I work, I'm welder, full-time worker, taking care of.
That's a great thing. You see, that's why I told you, brothers, I did a video on plumbing. Once you decide that you want to be your own person, you have to think like that the whole way. Welding, carpentry, plumbing, electrician. There are options out there for many of you so-called younger black men who don't want to fall into the corporate America paradigm. There are options, you just have to search them out. For those of you brothers who smoking weed all day, put down the damn weed. For those of you who are video game addicts, put down the video game controller for a moment. Especially if you feel like you don't have any options. You just can't sit in your mother's den or in the basement or in your room all day playing video games and smoking a blunt. There are options out there for you. If that brother can get a job as a welder, and I'm sure he's making good money, that just goes to show you that there are options. You just have to search them out. Okay? But as he stated, when he was bringing around some of his homeboys, his girlfriend's friends had no problem with him. That's why I stated, you have to evaluate situations, man. You have to look at people and you have to understand what their motivations are, what some of their issues may be. It's very obvious that the defendant is a lonely person. She most likely has low self-esteem. As the brother stated, when he was willing to hook his girlfriend's or his fiance's friends up with some of his homeboys, they had no problem. But as soon as she saw that the relationship between him and the plaintiff was getting serious, she got jealous. Why is that? Because she saw the potential of losing her friend, the plaintiff. That's why, as she stated, the defendant stated, she cut off the friendship because she saw that she was not going to be able to stop her friend, the plaintiff, from getting married. She was going to lose her as a road dog, as somebody to run the streets with. So once again, this court case covers a multitude of issues that affect the so-called black man. And once again, brothers, always be cognizant of how you depict yourself and be aware of the people that your woman is associating with. All right. Once again, I don't tell you what to do. I just give you my perspective.
Her and my family the right way. Yes, I'm a ex-gang member, but I'm not a cancer to my community anymore.
That's great. So hopefully a lot of brothers out there heard what he stated. And the reason why I'm honing in on that is because he was acknowledging that he was a cancer to his community. And that's the most important thing, brothers. We could finger point at this and that and talk about the cops killing black men and all these other things. The main thing is, are you a cancer to yourself and to your household and to your own community before anything else? Because if you're not a cancer, if you're a positive force, that takes away a lot of the leeway that so-called police have. And I say so-called police because all a police officer is a garbage man for human beings. That's all they are. And I say this over and over and over again. Their job is to tax the quote-unquote citizens of the corporation of the United States. And once our people, when I say our people, I'm talking about the so-called black man, so-called black woman, once they understand that they are viewed as financial commodities, especially the so-called black man in the prison industrial complex, then you understand your own value, your own self-worth, hopefully, and you will try to optimize your life by making better decisions. Once those things are resolved, then we can start to address the issues with the police, because then we'll have the wherewithal to have our own police force. And there's nothing wrong with thinking like that. Our people want to get caught up in these circular arguments, these circular conversations about race, where they're constantly trying to beg the so-called white man and white woman to validate them and love them. And you're trying to mask it and hide it behind all this fake pro-black shit. And that shit doesn't impress me. But kudos to this brother for acknowledging what he was. And the only reason why he could get better as a person is because he acknowledged his culpability.
The incident that she's talking about, it was the incident when came from, I believe, the club one night, dropping Jakayla off at home. We put up in the driveway, I believe her mother spotted me from a distance, She came up to the car, but she came up to the car, to me in an adult way. I was taught to respect my elders, and so...
Well, I wouldn't have expected her to come up to the car in an adult way. Maybe she wasn't 45 years old yet. As I've already told you brothers over and over again, incessantly on this channel, the woman does not start to mature until she's about 45. But then you add on top of that she is a mother and that she's worried about who her daughter is associating with. That being not just her female friend, who is your fiance, but also you as well, brother. At the end of the day, even though you're improving your life, you still have the image of your former life. So you have to understand, people are going to affiliate you with how you depict yourself.
And so on like that, but she came to me as a kid. So I treated her mother as a kid. She came up to me and...
Disrespectful, yes. You interpreted
yes.
that.
Not asking me, how are you doing? How was your evening? Thank you for getting my daughter home safe, since we be in so many incidents, but...
Did she know of you being involved in any criminal activity in that time frame or something? Maybe that's the reason. Or would you think she was just holding your past against you?
Yes,
she knew of your past, or the stereotypes she may have attributed
to you
wearing tattoos.
I believe it's a stereotype of ignorance. Mm-hmm.
No, it wasn't a stereotype of ignorance, bro. It was a stereotype based off of how you currently are projecting yourself because of the tats that you put on your face. And people might get upset by that. I don't have any issues with the defendant's mother feeling a certain type of way about who her daughter is associating with. It's not particularly the mother's job to assume that how he's depicting himself is based on a former life. All she knows about him is that he's pulling up in the driveway and he has a bunch of tats on his face. Now, of course, she most likely was very immature about it. As I've already stated, I don't expect her to be mature about it. But he has to understand as a man, the same way that he's grown to understand that he's moved past being a poison and a detriment to his community, that until and if he chooses to have those tats removed off his face, he's going to come across a lot of those same problems.